welcome everybody here to the X-Bomb Sports live show. My name is Andrew Valentin, and I hope you're all having a fantastic Thursday. We are coming to you live here from the Illinois Media School here in Lombard, Illinois. Again, wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen, Darren, I hope it is just right. And with me, as always, is the stupendous, the ever-amazing, the wonderful Mr. Drew Gwillem. Drew, how you doing, my friend?
Let's make it a double.
Yes, Drew and I we're
talking burgers.
Talking burgers.
Sounds good.
I went to Bon Appetit yesterday. I know, I'm so hungry.
Yeah.
And I chowed down on two double cheeseburgers, which I know is not healthy. Don't yell at me, but I will be honest. I was filled all throughout the night, and to be fair, also I worked till past midnight. So I mean,
hit the spot.
Absolutely. I fell asleep at work, but it's here, they're there, folks. But Drew, you doing good?
Yeah, not too bad. I could complain, but nobody wants to listen.
I will hear you out, my friend, if you want.
This is not therapy.
No,
well,
it's not.
Kind of.
It is, but it isn't.
In a way.
It is our place of zen, if you will, shall we say, right? It is a place
Woosah.
of woosah, indeed. Well, Drew, are you ready to start our chants, as it were?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do this then, folks. And we are kicking this off with Major League Baseball because it has been a while since we started talking about baseball and all the glorious goodness that is here. And we're going to stay in the city of Chicago, and we're going to start with the South Side because I say so. No, I'm just kidding. But basically, if you don't know, obviously, the big story that's really been brewing around with the Chicago White Sox happened previously on Saturday, this past Saturday, where White Sox and Yankees were playing each other. The benches cleared after both sides obviously started to get into it. And in the midst of it, obviously, a comment was made by New York Yankees Josh Donaldson towards White Sox shortstop Tim Anderson in the form of calling him Jackie in the middle of this fracas, if you will. Now, the context behind this being that, for those who don't know, that obviously back in 2019, Tim Anderson had said in a statement in an interview that he wanted to be the Jackie Robinson of baseball by way of basically saying he wanted to help more black athletes and African Americans get into the game of baseball and help integrate, he also said, black culture into the game of baseball as well. So that's what he meant by Jackie Robinson. Obviously, Josh Donaldson apparently maybe had made some comments and some digs beforehand. Obviously, this is something that he's probably kept in his mind for a while, and now he said this on the field, and now obviously there is an abundance of talk about, the severity of this, was this a racial slur, all this kind of stuff. There's a ton of discussion that's been going on. But Drew, from your perspective, obviously, this is certainly, we all understand, I'm sure, it's a very dicey situation. Many people are going back and forth on it, but on your own personal opinion, everything and all that, what do you think about this situation of what Josh Donaldson did and, calling Tim Anderson this Jackie comment? How do you take it? How do you view this in this whole situation?
Everybody knows that Josh Donaldson is an instigator.
Yes.
And an a-hole. Okay.
No more, yeah.
He does these kinds of things all the time. It's been proven in the past that this is what he does.
Right.
To try and get under the skin of other players. Mm-hmm. Give them the edge.
Yes. The game within the game,
yes,
as we said.
Exactly. So I believe he absolutely knew what he was doing when he said what he said. Tim Anderson had every right to get mad about it. I listened to Tim Anderson in his press conference. He didn't meet the media after the game, but I think it was the next day before the game. Mm-hmm. He's so cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah.
Like nothing seems to really bother him too much. Mm-hmm. Like this, I understand. This dude said this to him. He knew exactly what he was saying.
Yeah.
Tim Anderson, I totally believe what he's saying, that he brought this up to him in the past. Don't say that. Whatever was said between them, that he wasn't going to have any of that.
Right.
So stop saying it. And then Josh Donaldson, being Josh Donaldson, comes back and does the same thing. So these are the kinds of reactions you get from something like that when he knew it's not the right thing to say. Mm-hmm. And he went ahead and did it anyways. Just kind of shows what kind of guy Josh Donaldson is, and he's had a proven record of this. So I totally believe he knew what he was doing. I don't necessarily totally believe he's throwing it out there as like a racial thing.
Right.
I think it was more of like a dig, like, oh yeah, okay, Jackie.
Right.
Like I don't think it had necessarily racial intentions to it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of hard to say as well.
Right.
Coming from the guy that it came from. So I don't know that there's necessarily been those kinds of issues with him in the past, but when it comes to this, it wasn't necessary. It didn't need to be said.
Yeah.
They've proven it in the past that, hey, it bugs Tim Anderson, so stop.
Right.
And hopefully this will be the end of it.
It's interesting with this whole situation when you consider, like, obviously, when you say Jackie, and by the way, like, keep this in mind, like, Josh Donaldson admitted that he had said it, Jackie, within the reference of saying Jackie Robinson, but the way that the problem that I think he would have, and I'm not saying that this could have been avoided or anything, but the way that you kind of, like, maybe have one more of the court of public opinion, shall we say, is if he would have said, I don't think he is the Jackie Robinson of baseball. If he would have said instead, he kind of dug himself more into a hole in that interview, if you had seen, where he's like, oh, well, this is a running joke between us. We're friends. It's a friendly banter thing.
They're not friends.
No, and that's the thing. And Tim Anderson confirmed that per Yahoo Sports on an article, he had actually said that, no, we're not friends. Like, this is like, we talked about this in 2019. He's like, I warned him about using that name. And he's like, if you, like, I won't talk to you, you don't talk to me. Like, that's the deal. Like, and like you said, Josh Donaldson has a reputation of being an instigator. He wants to be a mouthpiece, and look, personal opinion myself, and I know this is going to come off a little, he just doesn't seem like a very smart person. He has a very frat boy-esque, if you will, kind of mentality to himself. 36 years old, by the way, too. I mean, never mind, never the case. I'm just saying, like, you would think maybe act more your age, but sure, it's baseball, it's sports, I get it, the game within the game, whatever. But saying that comment, I mean, at some point when he said it, I feel like you had to have known that people are going to immediately draw racial connotations from that, because saying Jackie as in Jackie Robinson, nobody, I think, is immediately thinking to themselves, oh, he said it because Tim Anderson's such a good ball player and he hits so well and he runs the bases fantastic and all. I don't think anybody went to that conclusion anyway. I don't think there's anybody that would have jumped to that. He said it with the intention of probably being, like you said, a dig towards Anderson, getting under his skin, which clearly didn't work because he hit the walk-off home run hit anyways in the coolest fashion you possibly could. So, props to Anderson on that. But even, I mean, and I agree, I don't know if it was met with racial intent, but certainly when you say that out there and you say that, make that sort of comment, I think there's no room for that, which is kind of what obviously his teammates had to say, right? The Yankees have very much kind of distanced themselves away from Josh Donaldson. You've got Aaron Judge, who said there's no place in the game for this. You have Aaron Boone, who said that, that kind of stuff can't happen in the game of baseball. We can't have that happening within our game. The Yankees have yet to put out any sort of statement. I know now Donaldson has since apologized. It's now started to go over the internet. He's put out a statement of an apology to Tim Anderson, his wife, his family, everything.
Jackie Robinson's family
Robinson's,
as well.
Yes, wife. Excuse me. Yes, and Jackie Robinson's wife and everything. So, which I'm, that's good. I'm glad that he's addressing that. Obviously, it's great. I'm glad that he's apologizing.
Just don't even put yourself in that position in the first place.
Absolutely. The fact that we get what you were trying to do, but you had to have known that saying that was going to lead to far more repercussions that have, which now Major League Baseball has basically put its foot down and said, no, you're getting a 1-game suspension. And, how much is that justified? I mean, personally myself, I think I would have maybe gone for a little bit more, just because you want to because here's the thing.
Make a point.
Yeah, exactly. Saying that, I understand for a lot of people out there, you're going to hear that and say, what, he just said a name. And it's not saying the name, it's what the name then it's what comes with saying the name, right? It's what comes with it. Like, listen, I'm a man who is, I'm not trying to throw in personal perspective, and I'm not trying to make it go any further, but look, I'm half Hispanic and I'm half white. And I've heard plenty of people throw out all kinds of, the common name that you would think you'd hear from a Hispanic person, right? And I know what it's in reference to when people have thrown that out there and stuff. I know what they're trying to do. Do I think Donaldson was trying to do the same thing? Maybe not necessarily, but I know Lawrence Holmes, even on 670 The Score, said that he remembers playing football and he was called Jerome. And he knows exactly what that meant. He knows exactly what the guy was trying to do, get under his skin, and it worked. But at the same time, he knows what that name came with. He knows exactly what that means. But, Drew, I ask you this. Obviously, I mean, on the whole of all of this situation, I mean, the 1-game suspension, do you think there should have been more done to this? And what else do you think maybe should Major League Baseball kind of do to try and see if they can kind of crack down on this stuff? Knowing that obviously it's very hard to do so, but what do you think?
I mean, it's tough. The rest of the world is trying to crack down on it too and be done with this garbage,
right.
But it seems to be a part of our society, and we need to keep pushing forward to ending this crap and being done with it, because there's no room for it in baseball, in life, our society, anywhere.
Yeah.
Because there's too much hate in this world all the way around, and something needs to be done about it. I don't know exactly. I mean, the whole world is trying to figure that out still. And I feel like sometimes they're fighting a losing battle because of the hate people have in their hearts in this world. And it's a shame. But you can just see the uncomfortable. I didn't actually see the interview with Judge, but from what I heard, he looked and seemed very agitated and uncomfortable during the entire thing.
He was very fidgety. You could see with his eyes he was darting around. So
so when that happens, your own teammate, you know that this is wrong. This was done wrong. You know what you're doing. He probably should have gotten more of a suspension to kind of make a point at this, like, hey, whether you meant any racial connotation towards this at all whatsoever or not, it gives that appearance. And that appearance of things is something that we need to be away from so these things don't keep happening. People are watching this on national TV. People are watching these things, and good, bad, or indifferent, I think it's bad for them to look up to these players as role models and all that. We've said it before on the show. I'll say it again. They're not role models. They're professional athletes. Yeah. Don't look up to them because they do things like this, and then as a young kid, you may think, oh, well, that's okay then. Right. And it's not. Yeah. So I think they need to crack down on this more, put their foot down, and try and see how they can push this away from the MLB and professional sports in general and our society.
Very well said, Drew. Honest, I wholeheartedly agree. And I listen, this is obviously, I know, again, this is a subject that maybe not everybody can relate to. I completely understand that, but just understand that, while there is, and again, I'm not trying to go to that length on political or anything like that, but there is that whole thing that is kind of, I don't know if this is the official name, but it's like called silent racism, right? It's not necessarily you're using those derogatory terms or anything, so you come up with different names to kind of try and hide underneath it, right? Was it meant in that way? I have no idea, but obviously it can be conveyed in that way, especially when you're talking about a player like Jackie Robinson, who was the first to ever go through, the first Major League Baseball player that was black to go into the major leagues and had to deal with all of those hardships. What else is that going to convey when you use that kind of name? So you have to be very careful with that stuff. You have to be careful with what kind of names you're going to throw around, because whether you meant it that way or not, the rest of the court of the public opinion, the rest of the world, like you said, Drew, is going to be watching, and their eyes are going to be looking on you. Before we get out of here, though, Drew, I wanted to ask a question. I know this isn't up here, but I wanted to ask you this, because now there's an argument about, or not an argument, I should say, excuse me, I used the wrong word. There's billboards up now, in case you saw, saying baseball needs more Tim Anderson, more or less kind of saying that. And I wanted to ask you this question, because I will say my piece at some point, but I want to hear from you first. Do you think that Tim Anderson is a good person for the game of baseball, for Major League Baseball? Do you think that he is a player, as a player, as a personality, all that kind of stuff, do you think that he is good for the game of baseball? What are your thoughts?
I really do. I think he's an up-and-coming star. He's one of the best shortstops in the game right now. He wants to have fun. Yeah. He says baseball, I believe it was him who said before that baseball's boring. He doesn't watch it. Yes. He loves to play it, and he wants to make it more exciting so that way fans and everyone watching don't have that same reaction towards the sport of, hey, it's boring.
Yeah.
So I like what he's doing for the game. Like I've said, cool, calm, and collected. When these things happen, he uses them as motivation, judging by his home run, his bomb that he hit at the end of the game to win. So I think he is good for the game. The things he's doing, trying to make things more fun, and just being a guy out there and not trying to be somebody he's not.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And the reason I bring this up too is because I was having a conversation with one of our instigating fans, shall we say, who was trying to make the argument that Tim Anderson is maybe one of the, players that is really kind of ruining the game. And I had posed the argument that I said, actually, I think he's probably one of the reasons why he's helping the game, right? I mean, look, whether you love or hate Bryce Harper, what's really nice is that he is an energetic villain, if you will, in some way, or hero, depending on how you look at him. And he helps the game of baseball because he gives it personality, right? I love Mike Trout as much as the next person, but let's be honest. Mike Trout is probably about as exciting as milk toast, okay?
Most people wouldn't know him if he was walked right past them.
Exactly. Like if he was more of a personality, or he would do more marketing, which is really not his style, he would probably be a very popular player at this point. That's why a guy like Ohtani, even though he's an international guy, he really placates very well to the American audience, and I'm very glad that he's getting the attention that he's getting, and he's gotten the great marketing ability. I mean, he's a personality. He's great for the game. He's an international star that also comes with a smile. I mean, the guy's he's trying to wake up his bat doing CPR because he's like, why can't I hit a baseball? Like, yeah, he's struggling, but that's really good stuff. I want to see that. Eloy Jimenez, Tim Anderson. I mean, there are guys within this game that are really good, energetic players. Tim Anderson is the future of baseball. Josh Donaldson is the leaving generation of baseball. It's time for the more Tim Andersons, Fernando Tatis, the Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s. I want to see more of these guys entering the game. I want to see more of them becoming a part of the game because they won't make it fun, right? Because Tim Anderson just said it. I don't watch baseball. How much do you watch baseball, Drew? I mean, honestly, on any given basis, how much are you probably saying you're watching it?
I watch the Cubs sometimes, but
exactly.
I'm not going out of my way to watch other baseball games, really.
Exactly. And if we had more players like this who had a little bit more of that energy, like we see in the NBA and the NFL, I guarantee you more of the younger generation, my generation, the older generation, might actually be more enthralled to want to watch it because we like when the players have fun, right? When the players are having fun, the fans are having fun, and the experience is a lot more entertaining. And that's what this is all about, being in the entertainment business, being entertaining, having fun. At least is what it should be about. But obviously, to Tim Anderson, keep doing what you're doing, man. I know they got thumped after this. They were really hoping that there's going to be turnaround. Then came the 16-3 whopping. But they did win last night, so hopefully they can get back to rolling. We'll see what they do. But that's going to do it for the White Sox here, ladies and gentlemen. And coming up next, we're headed to the north side to talk about what can we do with them Cubs, them boys in Wrigley Field. We'll be talking that here and more on the X-Bomb Sports Live Show. Welcome back here to the X-Bomb Sports Live Show. I'm still Andrew Valentin. I'm still here with Drew Gwilliam. And Drew, are you ready to head to the north side to talk some baseball?
I suppose.
All right. Well, then let's do this, my friend. So, yes, even if you don't want to, we certainly have to give that love to those Cubs because, believe it or not, I think there is place to actually say that the Cubs season has maybe gone a little bit better than possibly planned, perhaps. unless you want to count today, which if you don't know,
We don't need to talk about that.
well, just it was.
You just make sure you go ahead and say it.
I mean,
anyways.
it was not.
We just got to let the fans know what the score was today.
It was not a good day.
Yeah, it wasn't
not
a good day. But Andrew's going to make sure that he tells everybody.
It's not a good day for the Cubs. I'm leaving it at that.
We don't need to go there, but he's going to make sure anyways.
It's not a good day against the Reds.
Well, why don't you throw another Michigan upset on the board, okay?
I don't want to do that to you.
Go ahead, tell him what this Cubs score was, you ass. Go ahead. It was 20-5. There you go. Reds have the highest scoring day in 23 years. Anything else? Would you like to give stats?
No, it's okay.
How'd Joey Votto do today?
He had an all right day.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. All right day. All right. Well,
shall we move on?
As you can see, Drew's kind of going through it a little bit right now. Look, obviously, yes, it was even still with today. I mean, the team has been doing very well. So right now they are 18-26 right now. They are currently now in fourth place. They would have been tied for third, but listen, that division right now, they're still in that mix to possibly. It only takes but a game to put themselves back in the third.
What do you? Do you hear yourself right now?
I'm trying to give a little bit.
Do you
of
hear yourself?
Yeah, I know what I'm saying.
I'm the Cubs fan, and you're the one getting.
I'm trying to be Mr. Optimistic here. Okay. I will say the fact that they've been able to be plus on their runs scored and against, +7 on that. I'll give them props on that. Well, obviously that's gonna change, but nevertheless, the fact that they've been able to be here at this point in time up until this game, I think is really impressive. And they had a winning streak going for a while there, again, up until this. But nevertheless, the fact that they have 18 wins at this, I mean, a lot of people were like, they were probably going to struggle to get 12 wins by this point. The fact that they've been able to actually scoop a few together, I think says a lot for them. And not only that, but they've been playing pretty decently against some of the better competition here and there. The problem is, obviously, there's a string of moments where the pitching has not been, obviously, that's the key situation right now. It's not living up to the hype. It's having some issues, and obviously the Cubs are struggling with that. But Drew, I mean, obviously with how the season's looked thus far, I mean, what do you take away from the Cubs? I know we're gonna deep dive more into it, but just on the whole, for what you see right now, what do you like about the Cubs? Or what do you not like about the Cubs? I mean, how critical are you of the season thus far?
I'm not critical of it because this is kind of what I expected. I didn't expect a good team. I expected them to be very bad.
Right.
That's what they're. Whether they want to say it or not, they got to rebuild, and they had to do that starting last year by trading away all those pieces.
Yeah,
and getting the players back that they did. The rookies in their, or the young players in their minor leagues now are supposed to be the future, and hopefully will be the future.
Right,
but they're not there yet.
Yeah,
and they have a hodgepodge of players put together, and even pitching staff that you get what you get from them.
Right.
Some days they're going to look good, some days they're going to look really bad, and some days they're just not going to look like a baseball team at all.
Yeah.
It's just to be what's expected from this team this year, and I think that they were possibly going to be, especially with the signing of Suzuki, that some people thought maybe they would be better than what they are now.
Right.
And I'm kind of on the flip side of not necessarily thinking that they were going to be a good team, but maybe not playing as well as maybe some of the talk was.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Hap kind of stepping up. You see certain guys, Schwindel, Wisdom, that are getting their shot more consistently now.
Right.
Doing some things. So it's nice to see. It's fun at times, and other times it's just hard to watch.
Yeah. I mean, this team, I think, has certainly surpassed where I think they should have been at this point. I will give them that for sure. Excuse me. The struggle that has really come, like you said, it has been it's really the consistency of this team, right? Suzuki started off so great. Everybody obviously was cheering his name, and now he's kind of become almost a bit of a whisper, which I think is kind of good for him. It doesn't put a lot of undue pressure on a young man like him, like grow at your own rate. Let's let him, start to come on to his own at his own pace. You're not trying to force him, be like, okay, we need you to press for wins, right?
Well, he started out hot. They kind of figured him out, and he needs more adjustments to figure them out again.
Absolutely. And he's still a very nice key cog for the future. as far as like I'm still kind of wondering about where the Stroman thing still fits in this. I'm still of the mindset that his signing was supposed to usher in the Carlos Correa opportunity, which obviously I don't know where that broke down, but I think that was the kind of thing like, hey, Stroman's really good friends with Correa. Like, this should be able to work out, right? And obviously that didn't happen. So now I feel like Marcus Stroman's kind of like a lost lamb amongst the flock of this Chicago Cubs pitching rotation and the bullpen and everything. So I would like to give I'm trying to be as optimistic as I can for this team, but I also understand, like, yeah, optimism probably is the least thing that they need right now. What they really need is to start over. And it could potentially happen because, as we've now heard from Jed Hoyer, if you haven't heard the news, Jed Hoyer was recently talking in an interview and made the comment that there could be quite a few transactions coming in the very near future. This was coming from a report via Bleacher Report, where they were saying that obviously Jed Hoyer is under the belief that there's going to be a few more moves, being that assumption, he said transactions, but the assumption is that they're going to be sellers. They're going to possibly be looking to move away from a lot of the guys on this team, which obviously is something that we were kind of predicting was going to happen, for sure. I mean, especially with a few of these guys like Contreras and possibly a few others going. But I mean, Drew, is there anybody that you potentially think? Do you think that they're just going to try and see if they can maybe clean house with a few of these kind of the lingering names of the Cubs of the past that won the World Series and try and start over fresh? Or do you think that there's going to be like a few guys they're going to try and keep over? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, all along the way, talking about a contract with Contreras, there's not a lot of players out there of his caliber at the catching position, power hitting catchers.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a ton of them. So he's a hot commodity, and he's not going to break the bank either. So he's a guy I would love to see them sign and keep around.
Mm-hmm.
It was a guy that sounded like contract talks had broken down some, and because they were unsure about him, not fully sold on what he can provide and what he can do for them. And on all accounts, from what I heard from interview with Hoyer a week or two ago, he was saying how he likes what he's seen from Contreras.
Mm-hmm.
Not having to play every day because they can throw him in that DH role.
Right.
He's not having to play all the time like he has in the past, where he's getting some rest and able to produce more for this team when he's getting his starts.
Yeah.
So hearing that kind of makes me think that maybe they're going to revisit this before the trade deadline and hopefully get a deal worked out with him. That would make me happy. Yeah. I would love to keep him around. But as far as everyone else goes, I don't see why there wouldn't be a lot of transactions, a lot of trades before the deadline, shipping guys out. I see them. There's no reason for them to be buyers right now, unless for some reason they get a hell of a deal on somebody that they can't pass up, and they're like, hey, I want to resign with you. I want to be here for the long haul when this team's ready to win again.
Yeah.
If that's a possibility, sure, you go for it. But I don't think that is going to be a possibility. So I think what they're going for is hopefully some of these guys are playing at a high level come trade deadline or whenever somebody's calling for them, and they can get the most that they can for what they have.
For sure. I look at this Cubs team, and I think they are going to start kind of cleaning house personally myself. I think at this point, Contreras, I think, because look, they've got 3 catchers in the top 100 for prospects right now. So they're kind of set at the future for catcher. So there's a good chance that Contreras still might, again, I think they want to try and get the haul for him. It might be a little bit difficult, but if they can, great. Otherwise, I agree. Keeping him around would keep consistency, keep a leader on the field as well, too. Because I think at this point, the Cubs really need to consider trading Kyle Hendricks. I'm sorry. I know Cubs fans may not be happy about that, but there's been a significant drop-off in his fastball. He's not as consistent as he used to be. He's having issues now at the plate. I think he's even having issues at this point staying healthy. He doesn't look like he's 100% out there all the time. So
then why trade him and get nothing back?
Well, I know. And that's the thing is I think getting something rather than nothing for him now is kind of the problem because I don't think you're going to get many more wins out of him.
Post All-Star break, he could totally turn things around and be a complete winner, and then trade him in the offseason when his stock is higher.
That's not a bad idea. It's just I feel like they're going to want to try to move pieces off as soon as they can because they're going to want to try and kind of, see what they can do maybe in the draft and see what they can do in the free agency, clearing out contracts, even though they scream poor, but they certainly have money for sure. We know that for certainty. But I also think too, like I love Patrick Wisdom and Frank Schwindel are great players, but I think they're going to start to look to guys like at some point, Brendan Davis is coming up.
Right.
He is clearly the future of this team and should be noted as it. He's a heck of a baseball player.
Do you believe he was injured? So hopefully
he's currently
work
injured.
Through that.
Exactly. Don't worry about it. You get back in time. But at some point, they are clearly going to want to get that kid up there. So if he's healthy at the right time, perhaps there's a chance that you could start seeing moves get made. I think a lot of this is just due to the fact that they want to see this team begin the rebuild, right? Jed Hoyer, he wants to
They already have.
Yeah.
Last year started it when they traded away Rizzo, Bryant, and Baez. Yes. That was the start right there.
Absolutely. So I think now it's just time to kind of like start looking to those pieces and saying, okay, where can we fine-tune ourselves? Who can we get some decent value for? Because I feel like you package the right guys together, you can certainly get back some top key prospects, right? That you can say, not now, but maybe 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line, we can get ourselves back to a dominant place, right? Because they built the system that obviously worked in 2016 that everybody's now running with. So why not try to see if you can just redo the magic again? I know it's not Theo Epstein, but Jed Hoyer learned quite a bit from Theo, I have to assume. So I have full faith that Jed can get this done. It's just a matter of, can the Ricketts back him? And then this is where this kind of story comes into, because now I kind of question as to whether or not the franchise, where exactly they're going. Because if you haven't heard this story, this was reported by the Sun-Times, in case you hadn't seen it. So the word is that on the Marquee Network, apparently there's a show on there called The Reporters. If you haven't seen it, it's a pretty good show. They basically talk about what happened with the Cubs. They give their own take. Apparently it was pulled because it was too critical. And why do I bring this up? Well, I bring this up because my only thoughts can be that the reason why they pulled this was because the Ricketts said, whoa, what'd they say about us? Excuse me? We can't have that happen. No, our brand is far too valuable for you as the hometown.
On our network?
Right, on our network that we own. How dare you be critical of our team? I have a huge major problem with that on a media side, on a fan base side, on all that. That is a huge issue. And the reason why I bring this up is because this can certainly turn into a very major problem for the Cubs, where players, coaches, managers, even other media personnel who may want to come to the city of Chicago may start to say, do I really want to be a part of this, where all of a sudden they're dictating their own narrative by every given take? I have an issue with that. And Drew, I ask you this, obviously, again, I know this kind of seems a little bit off the sketch of it about talking for the Cubs, but do you see what my correlation is between that and the Cubs? And do you think that is a possibility, that having a story out there like this could potentially dictate the future of the Cubs and potential moves that could be made by any chance?
Rich pricks doing whatever the hell they want like usual?
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah, right?
It's funny that we were just talking about that yesterday.
Yeah,
here we are again.
It's like an everyday thing.
No matter what sport.
Yeah.
Not in a sport. Just in a company.
Yeah. All the time.
Yeah, it's everywhere you go.
Absolutely.
And this is just seems like another situation where billionaires are throwing their weight around or throwing their money around.
Yeah.
This is ours. You'll do what we say.
Yeah.
And it's like controlling the narrative, like you said. And I do think it's a bad look.
Yeah.
That, oh, well, you can't be critical of us on our own network.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's what the media is there for, is to be critical of things when it's necessary and to be positive about situations.
Yeah.
And bring the good things to light when that happens as well. So this is just one of those. Probably should have just kept your mouth shut, let it go, and deal with whatever happens after that.
We've said this before on the show, because this is not the first time we've talked about this kind of stuff happening. And I say we because I know, look, we're maybe the lowest common denominator, if you want, of sports media, but nevertheless, X-Bomb Sports, Blow the Whistle, whatever, we are part of sports media. We just work on a different level than everybody else. But nevertheless, we're not here to pander to the athletes. We, like you said, Drew, we will talk about the good things when the good things happen, but we will also discuss when the bad things happen, right? I like ESPN, and I love ESPN with all my heart for all that they do. There are a ton of times where I can count where you have a player, like a personnel, a media personnel, whoever, sitting up on that table, basically very much kind of skimming around the bad of, the number of times I can think of, like Brian Windhorst talking about how LeBron had done just such a good job, even though the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Lakers had possibly lost by 10 or 15 points, right? There's always a way to be able to curb and twist the story, right? Or whatever they call it. It's all about trying to fix it to your narrative so that you don't make the player upset. That doesn't mean anything. So I honestly, I think this could be a big hit for the Cubs in the long run. I think this could be a really big shocker for them because when players notice this stuff, right? Let's not pretend like they're not watching TV. Like, they will notice if the marquee network's not running certain stories because they say certain things are being too critical. Even the players themselves will notice that, and they'll start to say, why are you trying to protect us, right? There could come that point where all of a sudden the Cubs players maybe start to say, God, is this the real situation we want to be a part of? Is this the way that we want things to go? It could change the entire landscape of if a player wants to stick around or not, right? Contreras could look at that and possibly say, I don't want to play for these kind of owners, right? You could get Marcus Stroman saying, like, you know what, this is a little bit too much for my blood. So you have to be cautious of those things. They can be of a real detriment to the Cubs post-haste. But let me ask this question, obviously, because, I mean, again, we're still kind of in the short of the season. Let's be real. There's a lot more baseball that still needs to be played. But I ask you this question, Drew, as I ask everybody else out there as well. Do you think that there is a possibility that the Cubs could potentially weather the storm somehow? Do you think that there is a chance that they could? I didn't even finish the question.
Okay,
Jeez.
Go ahead.
Do you think that there's a chance that they could actually kind of maybe pull it together?
No. Are you still going? You want to have anything else to say?
Well, yeah, all right, so go ahead. Do you think there's any chance that they could actually make it happen, or do you think it's just going to be more and more failure?
No, just like we just talked about with Hoyer's thing, a lot of transactions. Yeah, that's what we think's going to happen is they're not going to be good. They're going to trade pieces away and try and get more draft picks or more players for the future, and they're going to be awful in the second half.
Okay.
That's where I'm going with it. That's what I think. Because if we think there's going to be a lot of transactions, that means there's going to be a lot of players gone, and then what are they going to replace them with?
Yeah. I mean,
not very good pieces.
I mean, you never know. Those young guys could all of a sudden like shoot up, and maybe there's a Kyle Schwarber gem somewhere. Jeez, so
how much Cubs baseball have you watched this year?
I've watched a fair amount. All right, I've watched a pretty. Listen, I know. Again, I've looked for some of the positives. I know there's been a lot of negatives. Don't get me wrong.
I'm just being realistic.
Oh, no, and I appreciate that. I'm trying to be the optimist on this one as much as I can. I agree, though. I think there's going to be a lot more downfalls. And honestly, I would say almost, again, it's not tanking, I want to say, but I would say almost in a way kind of embracing the downfall, I think would be a good move in a way, just simply because I think it would help a lot in making the team in a much better fashion. Towards the future, right? It's all about gearing it up for the future. 3-4 years down the line, get yourself back in contention. Because it looks like that division, honestly, right now it looks strong, but I guarantee you the Cardinals, the Brewers will have their fall-offs. The only team that I think could actually possibly be there might be the Pirates because their future looks like it's set for the next 5-6 years down the road. So that's going to be weird, I know. Cubs and Pirates fighting for first place, but I think that could actually happen. Sounds crazy, I know, but like the Pirates actually have a stack of draft picks that could work, potentially. Well, that's going to do it for the Cubs side of it. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously, let us know what you think about the Cubs. How do you think they're going to be doing this year? Obviously, I'm a little bit more maybe optimistic than Drew is, but nevertheless, I still think it's going to be a pretty bad year. But what do you think? Obviously, let us know in the comment section down below. And when we do come back here, folks, we're going to be doing our fan questions. That's right. We're going to be talking about some wonderful things that you guys had asked us. And if you guys want any of those questions, you guys can hit us up at xbsportsofficial@gmail.com. We want to hear from you guys. So we don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on the X-Bomb Sports Live Show.
Hey, watch your mouth. Why? I'll just put a quarter in the swear jar. Once it's filled, we get a Coors card. You have to work. I've been drinking Coors since my college days. The cold draft taste, the second stuff. Yeah, worth a recorder, am I right? You know it, mother. Hey, get those
Sports done?
Yeah. No. You, sir. Attention, employees.
The staff meeting, scheduled for this evening, will now be held tomorrow early as
Who's all? Dude, you're only 75 cents short. Oh, shh. Boss. Hey, sir, go yourself. You're fired! I still get beer.
And welcome back, everybody, here to the X-Bomb Sports Live Show. I'm still Andrew Valentin. Absolutely, yes. Thank you for the cheers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm still Andrew Valentin.
I don't know if they can hear it, but we sure can.
We sure can, that's
wow.
for sure.
Glorious.
Yeah, thank you so much to all of our
I know,
fans
you're not
outside.
worthy. You're not worthy.
Yes, thank you.
It's okay. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yes,
Yeah.
kiss the ring. If I had a ring.
Yeah, and then we woke up.
Yes, and then we woke up.
Yeah. Boo, 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 boo. Yeah.
Very well done, my friend. Very well done.
We're awake. Our
Yes.
fantasy's over.
Absolutely.
They're still cheering for us,
yes,
though.
Yeah,
it's real.
absolutely. It's actually pronounced Miliwake, which is Algonquin for the good cheer.
If you'd like to send us your cheers,
yes, absolutely.
xbsportsofficial@gmail.com.
Absolutely. And by the way, with those cheers, send us your questions as well, because it is fan question time, folks. That is right. X-Bomb fan questions once again. We had it yesterday. We had a few more questions that came in today. Drew, are you ready to hit these fan questions, my man?
What if I say no?
Oh, then they're going to be pretty disappointed, I got to be honest.
Okay, we'll do it.
All right, cool.
Let's go.
All right. We'll make sure. I promise you, everybody, we know we got a lot of questions. We're going to try and do these in moderation as much as possible. I know some of you guys asked a few in the back, but don't worry. So the first question, this comes from Will in Champaign, Illinois. Thank you so much, Will, for the question. So if you don't know, real quick back setup, Lane Kiffin has since kind of had his comments about what Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher were saying when we made our, by the way, the best old grumpy old man fight I've ever seen in my life for college football. Great stuff. I can't wait. But Lane Kiffin had his own stuff to say, which came in kind of a quick little moderation, if you will, and basically had a few kind of big points to have. Sorry, I have to open my notebook for this one because I took notes. Yes, I know. I'm such a nerd for that, I know. But basically what Lane Kiffin had kind of announced too was that he thought that college football should definitely be considered a pro sport. If not, it should already be a pro sport as it is, or it should be considered one as it is. He also made notes to the boosters being team owners. He also said that the top programs will move money from the facilities and coaches more into the top recruits, which is kind of almost a given at this point. Keep paying. He also said that he loves the fact that kids are being paid. He thinks that the kids should still be getting paid. He said also too that the better talent should also be getting more money. So the more well-known kids obviously should be getting the bigger price tags and things like that. But he also made the allusion too as well to say that possibly there should be something like a salary cap in college football as well to kind of halt all of the crazy money that's kind of being thrown around, to kind of put a limiter on how college football can spend its money. But he also said too that if that is the case, that these guys suddenly become pro, then you need to find a way to kind of do a limitation on the transfer portal as well. So with all that being said, obviously there's a lot more to this and then some. But the question that was asked from Will was, do we agree with Lane Kiffin that college football players should be pros or considered to be pros? He also says this too, being a guy who was a former college athlete who basically said a lot of bleep and bleeps that he wishes he would have been a part of this generation.
With the NIL deals.
Yeah, because he actually attended Eastern Illinois, and he says, look, I wasn't a good player, but at least I probably would have gotten something from the local area around there. So, but Drew, what do you think about it? Do you think that these college players should be considered pros?
I do not. 100% no.
Okay.
100% no. They are able to go out and make money off of their name, image, and likeness, which is about damn time. Because the fact that the NCAA and these programs are making millions of dollars and tons of money off of these players and their name, image, and likeness, but they can't.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that's part of it. But to call them pros is not even in the realm of possibility for me.
Okay.
Okay. How many college athletes actually make the pros?
Right.
It's not all of them.
No, it's
all of these players are not professional athletes.
Right.
They will never make it that far. There's proof of that.
Absolutely.
That's why we have a draft. That's why we have pro days. That's why we have these combines and everything else, is to give these players the opportunity to show what they have to make it to the next level. Most of them are not good enough to make it to the next level. So to call them pros still kind of doesn't work for me.
Okay. All right. All right. So here again, I got a notebook again full of stuff that I first off, I went down a rabbit hole last night while I was at work. I had a little bit of time and doing kind of more research on seeing about what would happen if pro players became, or what if college players became pros.
Don't let the rabbit too far.
No,
okay.
Listen. Peter Cottontail almost took me to Alice in Wonderland. Okay,
He may drag you in the hat with him.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things I noted. So if let's say college players became pro players, right? Some of the things I was able to note. Again, this came through people talking on sports radio, all kinds of stuff, articles I can find and everything. One of the big things was scholarship benefits would suddenly become taxed for players in the schools, right? So that instantly changes a lot of things on how the money's being distributed out, I would say, because now all of a sudden that kind of definitely throws a lot more things into it. How does the athlete judge? Where does the athlete kind of lay in terms of being an employee with the school, right? Do you still have to go to school, or can you just now be like a representative of the program? You know, how does that kind of situation work now?
That doesn't make any sense, because then what's the point of going to school at all?
Exactly.
What's the point of college? What's the point of college?
Right. College athletics, all of a sudden, it's not even college athletics.
No.
It's just athletics. It's just pro athletics at that point. There's no point to the schooling at all. So they also, too, then, okay, so then basically what Lane Kiffin also said was that they would become employees, essentially, of the university. So if that's the case, then the university then would have to draw up contracts for these guys. That means the players suddenly become fireable, right? Which means that there are going to be rules and stipulations put into their contracts about what you can and can't put on social media, what you can and can't talk about, you know, what your representation is to the university.
It's never going to work with a bunch of kids.
That's the issue, is that, because you think about it, when a professor gets caught up in a scandal, be it even the littlest scandal, your tenure, all that stuff is gone, right? If it's a kid in college, he gets a suspension. Maybe he gets, you know, from a game, right? Maybe he gets suspended for a week or whatever, something like that, right? If he suddenly becomes an employee, well, that's going to be even more defamatory towards the university all of a sudden. You can't run off any more kids, by the way, which means you can't take away scholarships all of a sudden, because now these are fully guaranteed contracts for 4 or 5 years or whatever, right? So now you can't find a reason to kick a kid off the team. You kind of have to oblige by said contract. Some of the, and this also too, a lot of people have said, well, the boosters paying makes it sustainable, right? But there's a limited amount of money that the boosters are going to be willing to spend. Like we talk about these big oil tycoons, right, for Texas A&M. But how much money are they actually willing to spend? Because they're not going to be spending billions of dollars on these kids. Let's be very realistic. We say that in a joking manner, like they've got more money than Alabama. Yes. But that doesn't mean they're going to spend all that money, of course. You have some boosters that might not be okay with it. Some boosters might be, there's going to be a lot of boosters that'll say, hey, we don't want to do this, right? There'll be some boosters that have bad experiences with kids that you're going to have to be pretty kind of cautious with, right? What happens if they get a kid, pay him a bunch of money, and then all of a sudden he decides he wants to transfer, right? That could be a very big issue. I think the other thing, too, that you have to understand is that the donors is really where a lot of the money for college football comes from. So that essentially that these guys would act sort of like, you know, these guys are the money. These guys are where it's at. And all of a sudden, all the money that's going to these, you know, athletics and facilities. Because Drew, you and I know for the universities that we root for, Michigan and LSU, they generate a ton of money. They have beautiful facilities, not just for college football, but for all of their sports, right? They make a ton. I mean, they know college football brings in a lot of money, which brings in a lot for these college programs, not just college football, college athletics as a whole. Well, all of a sudden, all that money gets allocated from the donors going into college football and those recruits. That's going to hurt the rest of the athletics. So now what happens to track and field? What happens to, you know, gymnastics? What happens to all those sports that are both men and women's that are in like the Olympics and stuff, right? Because you have Title IX that's out there, which is you have to have equality amongst all genders, right? I mean, that's something that these are all things you have to take into account when you think about calling them pros, right? And the biggest thing too that I think about is these kids are going to get exploited even more, right? Like let's be realistic. With this comes also more exploitation for the kids. And just like Lane Kiffin said, the top kids are going to make life-changing money, right? The guy that, like I said, Will from Eastern Illinois, my guess would be, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you, Will, or anything, but you said you were a middle-of-the-road role player that came in and out of the game from what you told me. If that's the case, you probably would have made a good couple of maybe $1,000 maybe, but that's probably about it. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just trying to be realistic, right? Eastern Illinois is not a big program, right? It's not a big university or anything like that. So I understand completely that if that's the case, then they're not getting a ton of money, right? If it's Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe that's a different story. But that's not the case here. This isn't Jimmy Garoppolo. So listen, there's a ton of things that are going to go along with this. And I agree with you, Drew. I think that you can't call these kids pros because once you do, everything I just listed, everything that Drew just said there, it all has to be taken into account and it all goes into effect. And it really messes up with the college system. It really does. And then at that point, why even have college athletics at that point, right? We just call them pro clubs at this point. It's pretty much what it is. So, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't think it'll ever get to the level of being a pro sport, though. That's why we, like you said, Drew, that's why we have the draft. That's why we have the NFL. And that's why we have all these other semi-pro teams, too, like the fan-controlled football league and all these other football leagues that are going to be out there and stuff. So let's move on to our next question, and then we'll get ourselves out of here. So this one comes from a man, Levon, in Rochester, Pennsylvania. Sorry, I thought I had to sneeze there. Levon asked us the question. He said, he kind of started off with saying, I'm sick and tired of us talking about Kyrie. I'm sick and tired of all this stuff, but I got to ask you this question, guys. Kyrie Irving, the news has recently broke that the Brooklyn Nets purportedly may not be looking to sign Kyrie Irving to this 5-year, $250 million extension or whatever he is trying to look for. And the question that he asked us was, will the Nets actually extend Kyrie Irving, or do you guys believe that they will actually let him walk away? What do you guys think? Drew, I know we're sick and tired of talking about this dude and this team, but what do you think for Kyrie Irving with this new news that came out that the Nets might be not giving him the extension? Do you think that they move on?
I think they might try and work something with a sign and trade for him.
Okay.
Just so they don't get left with nothing.
Right.
Kind of like the Bulls situation with Zach. They don't want to get left with absolutely nothing if he wants to go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
In this case, I don't think they want him there anymore because
I can understand that.
Yeah, they need full-time players, and if things again, he was able to play the second half of the season, most of it, but if things fall backwards some and then restrictions are made and he's only allowed to play half the season again,
right,
that's not benefiting the team. So I think they're not going to keep him around.
Yeah.
But I think they may talk with him and be like, hey, we're going to try and work a sign and trade. Where do you think you want to go? And then we'll try and do that as best we can, but we need a couple options because we may not be able to make it work. But be prepared. You're not going to be around, but we'll try and work something for you that if we can do anything.
Oh, Kyrie. Oh, lovable Kyrie. You know you're one of my favorites. Listen, all the reports are saying that the Nets are saying this because obviously they're worried about his availability, which I can't blame him. Of course, I would be in the same kind of mindset that they would be right now, and I agree. I think that there could be a good chance that he's got a player option. You have to remember that. He's got a player option, which is a $36.5 million deal. So I think right now there's a chance that he declines that player option, which means he wants to get the full-time 5-year, $250 million contract. But at this point, you haven't earned it. You haven't shown any reason why you deserve the money. You played the season of the bubble, and then you decided not to go in the bubble because you said there were other reasons for it. Then you played pretty well when they got James Harden, and you guys looked like you're going to be an elite team. And then this year you sat out because you didn't want to get the vax, and then you played part-time. And then when you finally played, you were in the playoffs, and it looked like you had a chance, but then you were fasting at the same time. And all of that goes to hurt your image, unfortunately. And I know Kyrie's going to do what Kyrie wants to do, right? He's very much in the same line as Antonio Brown, no matter what. They're very much the same player. Antonio Brown's going to do what Antonio Brown's going to want to do. Kyrie's going to do what Kyrie's going to want to do. I don't think he comes back. I do think they explore a sign and trade. If not, they could just potentially let him walk outright, because at this point, I think Sean Marks doesn't want the headache. And from what I've understood, Kevin Durant hasn't talked to anybody in the Nets for weeks. So I think it's going to come down to a point where Kevin Durant once again makes the ultimatum. For those who don't remember, when he was in Oklahoma City, he said, it's either me or Russell Westbrook. Who do you want? Well, they went with Westbrook, and then he walked off to Golden State and won a bunch of titles.
Mistake.
Yeah, mistake indeed. So now it's going to come down to it's either me or Kyrie. If I'm anybody, I'm choosing Kevin Durant. Because if anything, you can at least say he's dedicated to the game and dedicated to winning. I can't say the same for Kyrie Irving. And this is Kyrie Irving's home. He's from Brooklyn. He's from New York. And I can't even say that he's committed to actually seeing this team win. So if I were them, I would stick with Kevin Durant. I would sign and trade Kyrie Irving. Get as many players as you can to back up Kevin Durant. Otherwise, if you choose Kyrie, if I'm KD, I'm out of here.
Right to the Bulls.
Actually, that's something that I talked about with a friend of mine. If he decides he wants to leave, Zach LaVine, you are so fun, but DeMar DeRozan knows how to play the two. And quite frankly, Kevin Durant on the Bulls with this team, Mitchell Robinson and Mo Bamba, tell me that team doesn't win like 55.
Mo Bamba.
Tell me, listen, I will listen to that
Send
song
him the
all
video.
If they get 55, 60 wins, I'll listen to that song all day. Are you kidding me?
You don't really have a choice when people send it to you in emails.
Yeah, that's true. You
keep it up.
Thank you, by the way.
Keep it up.
After we talked about it yesterday, thanks for the 15 more emails that you guys sent me for it. Appreciate it. But
You're beautiful people.
I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think Kyrie Irving should stay in Brooklyn and Kevin Durant should come to the Bulls? We think so. Let us know in the comment section down below. We want to hear from you guys. And that's going to do it for our show here, ladies and gentlemen. This has been a quick one, but a fun one all the same nonetheless. Drew, as always, it's such a pleasure to have you on, man. And
I thought it was regular time.
it was a regular
It
time?
wasn't quick.
Oh, okay.
Normal time.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to say, too, by the way, we were right for choosing the Celtics.
I picked the Heat last night.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Oh, when we left.
When we
I
left,
forgot.
you
When we
said
left,
the
I changed
Celtics
my pick.
because Tyler Hero had then said.
And it wasn't necessarily about Tyler Hero. It was more about Marcus Smart playing.
That's true, too, yes.
They kept it close until about 2-3 minutes in the second quarter, and then it
He
was
had
all
the lead.
Celtics.
The Heat had the lead, and boy, it looked like a 90s basketball game out there, but God, I love it.
Yeah, now I'm rethinking this. Might be Celtics in 6 now.
It very well could be. It very well could be. Well, we'll talk about that more next week, folks. Obviously, we're going to get into it, but Drew, as always, of course, great to have you. Please let the people know where they
Always
can.
fun to be here.
Let them know where they can find you, listen to you, all that kind of good stuff, my friend.
Right here on Wednesdays and Thursdays, co-hosting or hosting. And check me out on Instagram at DDACWill25 and Facebook at Drew Gwillem.
There you guys go. Make sure to go follow him on all the social media. Give him all the love and likes, and keep it clean, folks.
Come up with better condiments than mustard. I know we keep bringing it up. But
Yeah, I know.
that's because I'm so shocked and slightly appalled.
It's not only mustard, it was spicy brown mustard too. Like, what in a specific. I wish you would have given the brand too. That would have been nice. Like,
Yeah.
that would have been interesting to know what brand. Nevertheless,
Okay.
so many people are just kind of like, "What are you talking
You're
about?"
a sick man.
Yeah. So, anyways, you want to follow
Add
me?
that to your bank, okay?
You want to follow me? You want to ask any more dirty questions or whatever the case is with food or anything like that? You guys can hit me up at The Fluffy Girl. I'm also at Boom Crew Captain on Instagram as well. You guys can find me. Obviously, find us on the live stream as well. You can find us right now on the live stream on Facebook and YouTube. We go live every Wednesday and Thursday, 5 to 6. We're looking in those time frames. So we're looking to possibly maybe see if some things are going to potentially be in the winds of change. Who knows? I know we've been saying that for a while, but we've got some things potentially in the works. We'll see what happens with that, and we'll announce it when it does launch. Also, too, guys, make sure to follow us on our Instagram and Twitter at XB Sports. And any questions or comments you have for us, again, it says xbsportsofficial at gmail.com. We want to hear from you guys as always. Follow us as well on our wonderful, wonderful podcast. So many of them. Blow the whistle on the radio side, folks. Not going live this week. Won't be going live next Monday because of Memorial Day. So everybody enjoy yourself on your Memorial Day, of course. But check us out on Tuesday for the showtime. We may be going live for the screen and stuff. So make sure to check us out here on the Facebook and YouTube side. 2:30 to 3:30 for Blow the Whistle. Check out our boy Brandon Janeska at 94.3 XL WMKR Genuine Radio doing his thing for the countryside. And also, too, check out Baseball Banter with Brandon on Spotify where you guys can hear some of the great stuff. And, of course, Anchor as well for your baseball needs. Also, too, check out Monday Motivation with Hannah B. Wonderful Spotify podcast as well where you can get all your wonderful needs to get yourself pepped up, as well as find it on Odyssey and iHeartRadio amongst all other podcasting platforms. And check her out as well on the radio side, 102.3 XLC, the afternoon drive, 3 to 7. And you can also find her, too, at 96 Star doing her thing in the morning with Eddie Volkman, the legendary Eddie Volkman, where they are killing it right now on the morning show as well. Also, to check out our boys at The Parlay. Check them out at theparlay.com. It's our very own Tony Lopez and former Chicago Bull professional boxer Kendall Gill. And also, any of your fantasy football needs, check out the Fantasy Fake Football Guys. We will most likely be going live next week with our show, so be on the lookout for that as we get ourselves back into the mode for our fantasy football needs. It's on YouTube, the Fake Football Guys. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week. And as always, much love and peace out, Boom Crew.